important in your mind to less than most important. So we have that information, and looks like it kept my circles up there from my practice run. Sorry, but it'll work. This is the planning and zoning ranks. So at the top of the list, you'll see PZ 1, 2, 3, 4 going across. This is the planning and zoning commissioners, and then their ranking by category is listed from top to bottom. So as you can see at the top, perimeter buffers, each commissioner gave a ranking of, I should back up, low number is number 1 to 6. 1 highest priority, 6 not the highest priority. So the lowest number here, tabulation, is the highest priority. So in perimeter buffers, they gave respectively a score of 4, 4, 4, 2, and 3. I've circled or highlighted the number 1 for each commissioner's ranking. You can see that in the green boxes, and then coincidentally, the least highest ranking is number 6. I've circled that as well. So what's that mean? In total, the highest ranking priority for the commission is open space as a topic.
Can I ask, can you break open space down into like subcategories? What would that include?
Right. So if you go back to the table that we presented, the open space categories these are very broad.
Right.
Determine the county's goal for active and passive use, update the list of permitted and non-permitted uses of open space, and then determine if 30% of open space, which is what is in code today, is the right number. So
this would be as it pertains to subdivisions, not necessarily, say, the work of the land trust or something like that.
Absolutely. This is only subdivision work that we're talking about, yes. Any other questions on Planning and Zoning Commission's rankings? So to summarize their ranking, here is from top to bottom, open space being first, forest preservation second. We had a tie for third place, county code and perimeter buffers, interconnectivity, and then county code and miscellaneous code updates. You also provided your rankings. Here they are, again with my chicken scratch. I guess that's good. It shows again the county council members' votes, how you voted, with the green boxes symbolizing your highest ranking score, and then I circled in blue the lowest ranking score. And in the case of the county council's tabulation, your lowest score was perimeter buffers, or your highest priority was the perimeter buffer conversation. Mr. Riley, in case you're wondering, there's over 12 possible action items in perimeter buffers. I'll just cite a few. We talked about making all buffers the same size, establishing new buffer planning requirements and input from the Department of Agriculture, creating access points for buffer maintenance, buffer the buffer so that there's distance between the buffer when they are developing the subdivision. All these topics would fall under this category.
Right. You beat me to it.
I was thinking along this.
It's a broad topic. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Almost each one of those could be a separate conversation. So it could be a lot of work for staff.
You are correct. I would say it's interesting here to see that in both cases, county code and miscellaneous codes had two council members citing that as your top priority and two council members citing it as your not top priority or your least priority. And then forest preservation received 2 votes for least priority, at least in this stage. Now, you have to understand, we're just saying this is a priority as in what should we tackle first. It's not whether it's a priority to the county as it relates to what we're seeing and talking about in the input you're getting from your residents. It's really how much and what we should tackle first, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So your ranking, first was perimeter buffer, second open space, and then down the list. We also combined the two because I think that's really what you wanted to see. And this is, for a statistic nerd like myself, taking 10 individuals voting without knowing what the others are voting for, we ended up with 2 ties. So open space and perimeter buffers were tied for first, and forest preservation and interconnectivity were tied for second. receiving the exact same amount of points when you combine commission and council votes. Code updates at the bottom, superior design and miscellaneous codes. So really, it tells me that between the two, we've got a clear indication of what we should start working on, whether it be open space or perimeter buffers first.
And to reiterate, it's what you think we should work on first, not necessarily what we think is most important.
Exactly, and that's a key point, because
Exactly.
we don't have the horsepower to cover all these topics, and all of these, I think there was nearly 39 individual potential changes that would open up inside those individual changes even more things to talk about. We needed to narrow down what you want us to work on first. This is certainly not a judgment of priority as in what's most important for the county. It's just what you want staff to begin to address. I think all of these are important, and we will address them over time.
Can I clarify one thing? One of the biggest pushbacks I've gotten so far on the residential plan zone, what are we calling it, RBZ or whatever, is I think there's a concern out there that if we make these changes that it won't automatically map over into that new designation. And my understanding is that it will. So there shouldn't be any concern from the public that, that somehow that zone will be excluded from any changes we make. I just want to clarify that and be sure.
So, and I'll ask Mr. Robertson to clarify or make sure I say this correctly. I think you're referencing the master plan ordinance.
Master plan,
yeah.
Yes.
Which we're going to talk about further down the agenda today when you receive all the comments that we've gotten. So the master plan ordinance is wholly independent of 115 and 99, except we're going to be wise enough to understand what we update in development design with perimeter buffers, open space, should be or will be reflected within the independent master plan ordinance. Did I say that correctly? Okay. So while they're on separate tracks inside the code, I think we'd be silly to have one standard in one part of the code and another standard in a different section.
I think that would alleviate a lot of concerns that people seem to be expressing.
Yes. And as you will hear in a few minutes, we received significant amount of comments in the master plan, as I know you did in your inboxes. One thing, so today our objective is we need to agree on the first topic and to, reference back to it looks like it's perimeter buffer or open space, and staff has an opinion on that if you care to hear it. But I also want to talk about what we're working on as well, master plan ordinance being one of them. I don't think we want to lose sight of the workload that staff here and our consultants are working on with the master plan ordinance. It's being developed. We've got significant amount of work to do in the review of the comments. I don't think we should stop that work. It really depends on your priorities as to what we should continue to do. I think we can juggle a couple of balls in the air, but not too many, is really the priority by staff. We got a download on workforce housing over the last several weeks with the Today and Tomorrow conference. We had a discussion at CDAC related to workforce housing. So I've heard a few feedback from all of you about staying focused on workforce housing, and if we need to consider other updates to that ordinance that would help, we should consider that. And then I've had some other conversations among you with solar arrays, specifically the bonding issue and whether or not we should tighten that up even further, because there's concerns. By staff's count, we've received over 40 solar array applications that have been processed, which is quite a lot if you think about it in that number. And what they look like, whether they'll be built, and what they're going to be when they're done is something that I think we're all concerned about. So that's also in our pipeline of work.
But with that, have we received any site plans yet?
Question for Mr. Whitehouse.
Some preliminary have come in, but I don't think we've taken it stamping yet.
Okay.
Preliminary.
That's what I
none
thought.
have been stamped.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, with all that being said, if you look at the two top priorities, and if you want us to provide feedback, staff's feedback would be that perimeter buffers should be the first. We've heard about it significantly over time, and it probably, believe it or not, will have some open space within it. And it's something that we could come back to you in short order, I think, in a few meetings. And then certainly my vision is to have ordinances being discussed by first quarter of next year and then acted upon at that point, once it works through the public hearing process. Any ordinances we produce are going to have to go through both commission and council, so you know how long that takes. And it's going to be somewhat of a lift, but I think we're going to be able to do that without a problem. So I'll pause there. Anything to add? Any questions?
I think it certainly makes sense that we undertake one of those at a time. Mm-hmm. Yes. Because you have other things, the master plan zoning ordinance, workforce housing, solar arrays. Those two things for sure are important to deal with. And we only got so much staff and only do so much. And I have always believed that you give people too much to do and you end up with a product maybe not as good as you'd like it to be because there are too many things going on, too many things pulled in different directions. So I would think if your suggestion of you and the staff is that we deal with perimeter buffers first, I would think we'd do that. Does anybody disagree with that or want to do something different? Or?
No, I mean, when I did the list, I was looking at things from my mind that could be knocked out relatively quickly, without major push-up. But that would be my preference. But yeah, I mean, I've always, you say our ability to generate work far exceeds staff's ability to keep up. So we want to be mindful of that, not overwhelmed.
Any thoughts on this side over here? Everybody okay with the perimeter buffer to start with?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Riley. I think there are so many issues that could be addressed fairly simply and quickly. I hate to diminish the workload, but like covering dumpsters. I think we formalized work hours, so we don't have to worry about that. But issues like that. But I think all in all, this is a move in the right direction.
Okay, and I think, looking at the three of us, our intent is to keep the work continuing with the master plan ordinance and then undertake the perimeter buffer at the same time, come back to you all as quickly as we can with both. And it's going to depend on all the information that we've received and digested with master planning, quite frankly, and then starting the perimeter buffer. But we've got a starting point on perimeter buffer, too, because we spent nearly 3 hours at the EOC talking about it. So I think we have an idea of what you want to see. We would come back with a list and discuss that, and that list would then turn into ordinance recommendations. So we'll walk before we crawl, but ultimately I think use the standard ordinance process that we've done in the past.
Green?
I just had a thought on the cleanup of some of the codes. So will there be anything that we're looking at that if we make a change over here, it conflicts with the old versus something new we need to clean up? That was the only reason I was thinking, too, that we maybe look at that. Is there anything conflicting, or there may not be anything that conflicts with something we may be working on?
Mr. Robertson?
Yeah, no, that's actually a good question, because that truly exists right now with perimeter buffers. We have conflicts in the code between 99 and 115, which that's one of the goals, is to clean that up, to make those consistent, because there sometimes is confusion. Is it 20 feet or is it 30 feet? And what are the planning requirements and that sort of thing? So, and obviously we'll look beyond that, too, to make sure that there's not any, sort of spider webs from what we change that needs to also be fixed.
Yeah, so we just don't want to fix one thing, and then we got to go back and refix it and do that. So that was my thing about cleaning up the code.
No, that's a good point. And that perimeter buffer is a prime example of that, because it'll happen.
All right. Unless there's any other comments.
You're good?
I think we have your direction. We will.
I did want to say one thing, too, also, for the two people sitting down here, in reference to Mr. Schaefer's comment a while ago. I think it's a good point. Some things, I think, easy things like we did the work hours. The P&Z does that now, puts as conditions. The concern that Mr. Schaefer has brought forth before, and I understand, doesn't happen in my district, not developed in my district, but the cleaning, the covering up of dumpster, that kind of stuff. That's something that P&Z can put a condition on. Doesn't need to be an ordinance that we do. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's certainly correct. We
Okay.
can start doing that. Because you're right, the hours, they've become fairly standardized, but we can certainly look at other things that Mr. Schaefer.
Yeah, I mean, those things like that can be fixed, to me, very easily by conditions of the P&Z and the site plan review, that just do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
Take that into advisement.
Thank you. We will be back with updates on master plan, which will come later to this agenda, and then perimeter buffer will get to work, and we'll be back in front of you and have some good news, hopefully.
We are so looking forward to it.